Good morning, everyone. Welcome in. I've got to say, before I dive in with the serious intro, that every time classes take up the chance in the background to actually turn it into a dance party during that countdown, I love it. So way to go, Miss Smith's class, among others. You guys rock. My name is Jesse. I'm with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And for those joining us for the first time in one of these broadcasts, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Now, we are on our 130th broadcast of the school year so far. It's been wild and crazy. We haven't slept at all. And today I'm really excited because we're going back to my all-time favorite place, a place that I grew up going to all the time personally, the Toronto Zoo. So the Toronto Zoo is our big partner for all sorts of digital education programs that you can catch on your YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, their Facebook page. You've got audiences tuning in from all of those places today. So a big welcome to absolutely all of you. We've been doing series with them for years now. And every single month we get the chance to go to the zoo to learn about some of their amazing creatures, conservation stories, and more, all with the help of world-class educator, Mary Ellen Fraser. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to her as we learn about preparing for the cold. Winter settling in. I've got my thick sweater on today. It's wool. It's very nice and very cozy. And we're going to learn how some animals do that. Specifically, we're starting today with our camels, which are one of the weirdest, coolest creatures on planet Earth. So without further ado, Mary Ellen, welcome to the broadcast.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be joining you here today and learning all about our animals here, how they prepare for the cold, what we do to help them. And just like that, Jesse, you mentioned how amazing the camels were. And I got to tell you, you timed it perfectly. They came right over the hill just for that exact moment. So we've got our family herd up here behind us. They're looking very interested. They want to know, how do we get ready for the winter? They're super excited to tell us all about it. So we're going to get started in just a second here. Jesse's going to bring up, though, for us a land acknowledgement that we're going to do, and then we will get started with our program here. So we would just like to acknowledge that the land that we are standing on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. Thank you, Jesse. All right, I'm going to turn the camera around here for us. It always takes me just a quick second so that I can introduce our amazing guests here with us. There we go. So this is our family camel herd. So we have two kind of groups of camels here at the zoo. So in front of us right now, we have Tilly, Josie, Soraya, we have Jamarcus, and we also have Carrie. Now, Carrie, she's a little hidden. Let me see if I can get a better angle on her here. There she is. So we can really easily tell Carrie because she's our littlest one there. She was just born, so she is our newest resident here at the zoo. When I say just born, she's a little bit older now. She was born way earlier in the year, so she's not fresh on the ground. They don't like to have babies at this time of year, and we will talk about why that is in just a few moments. But this is our family herd here. And then we also have one big male named Zip. And so he doesn't live out with this group all the time. He's a little bit more solitary, so he's hanging out by himself right now. And he only comes into the group when it's time for mating season, or they kind of, want to be a little bit more social with each other. But in here we have our family, and as they kind of come up one at a time, I'll introduce who is who and also give you some tips and tricks. So if you come to the zoo and you see them, you'll be able to tell them apart as well, and be able to know which camel is which and impress all of your friends by knowing all of their names by heart, which is always so fun. All right, so our topic today is actually a two-part series. So Jesse was mentioning we do lots of videos like this together. We've been doing them for a couple years, and I hope to continue them for a very long time as well. And later in 2024, we are actually going to be doing a part 2 of this series. So we're talking about energy management and how we adapt to our seasons. come springtime, we're going to do a similar program where we talk about adapting for the hot weather that we have here, and how our animals prepare for that. So today we're going to focus on the cold, and then we're going to go into the hot later on. So feel free to tune into that one as well. Keep your eyes peeled. They'll also be a really good program. All right. So I heard Jesse as well before we went live, we were announcing a little bit kind of where everyone is. So Jesse, I know you love when I do this, but we're going to spam the chats really quickly. I want to see, can everyone type in what the temperature is like for them right now, where they are? What do we have across the board? It's currently 6 degrees, feels like 3 in Toronto.
Oh, lucky you. I think it's -2 feeling where I am in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. We've got Bev on Facebook who talked about it being cold in England. I don't know if cold in England is comparable to cold in Canada, but I'd love to hear more. We've got classes in Milton, Brampton right now. We've got our Westview School friends in Alberta. Anyone who wants to chime in the chat, how chilly is very cold in England.
Yeah, they got a wet cold there for sure.
Yeah, same in Whitby. No one's in any tropical locations today, sadly. We didn't bring in any Dominican or Tanzanian classes. They're not here. 3 degrees in Waterloo. For our American friends, 3 degrees is like 37 Fahrenheit. Just too chilly, I think. But that's
I'm glad that you did that conversion, because I would not have been able to do that quickly. Thank you, Jesse.
So pretty good. Pretty cold everywhere, Mary Ellen.
Okay, I like it. So we're all kind of on the chillier side today, which honestly makes a lot of sense for us here. If we're all kind of across Canada, then we're sort of in the same region or temperature range. And that means we're all kind of doing the same thing to prepare for the winter as well. So we have to adapt to these different seasons. Now, in Canada specifically, and there's a couple other places around as well that do this, we have those 4 distinct seasons. So we have a fall, a winter, a spring, and a summer. And if you live in one of those climates, you have a weather wardrobe for every single season. It's absolutely wild, but you got to have different layers and things to wear to prepare yourself. And animals do that as well. Now, when we're getting ready for the winter, you can have 2 kinds of adaptations. You can have something that's behavioral, or you can have something that's a physical adaptation. So behavioral is more like a state of mind. So it's something you change about how you do things. And then physical is something that happens to your body that you can't really control. And it just does it automatically as a way of your body saying, oh, I need to save myself here. Something's going wrong. So for humans, some examples for us where, in the wintertime, we might turn the heat up in our houses. We might wear more sweaters, thicker socks. Maybe it's become soup season for us and we're drinking lots of warm beverages, teas, hot chocolates, warm coffee, and we're having lots of soups and more hearty foods. We might spend more time indoors and less outdoors, unless you're like me today, doing a broadcast with the camels. Then we get to spend lots of time outside with them. And those are ways that we can kind of stay warm. Now, even for me today, I have a hat on, I have my fleece, and I did bring my mittens just in case I needed them. Because standing here when I'm not moving as much doing a broadcast, I can get a little bit chillier, even though we're not in the negative numbers yet for our weather. So that can sometimes happen. Now, what are the equal parts for our animal friends? So how do they stand the weather as well? Well, our camels right now in front of us, and we're going to learn a little bit more about some other animals as well later on, but specifically looking at our Bactrian camels that we have here, and I emphasize the Bactrian because they are 2-humped camels. We can see right there, we have 2 humps. So they're not the 1-humped or the dromedary camels. Our Bactrian camels here, they can live in positive 40-degree weather, which Jesse can do the conversion on that for Fahrenheit for us, and negative 40-degree weather. So they have a massive range that they have to be able to survive. And one of the ways that they do that, oh, here we go. We're coming down to see what's going on. One of the ways that they do that is they grow in this massively thick coat of fur. So we're going to come up here and, oh, there we go. I love it. 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Thank you, Jesse. That's our transition there for the weather. So you can see here, if I zoom in on our neck, it is such thick, dense fur on them. And this keeps them super, super warm. They have it all over their body. Even if I come down on their legs here, we can see it all the way onto their toes. So they've got hooves there at the bottom, and they have fur all the way down each of their legs. And you'll also notice that animals who live in climates that can get really cold, They have smaller appendages. So camels have pretty tiny ears for the size of animal that they are. And they've also got a really tiny tail. And that just means that those parts of their body don't get as cold as others when they're out in that chilly, frigid temperature. So they get a big, thicker coat. Oftentimes, they'll start eating more food. They'll bulk up for winter. So right now, our camels here are being fed some carrots as a little treat here to have them come a little bit closer for us. And so they are bulking up. They put on a little bit more weight. Another animal that does this, think of a bear. So they're going to go through a torpor or a hibernation. We're going to talk about that in a second as well. Or even polar bears bulk up as well to prepare for their fasting time come spring or summer. Now, some animals, not only do they grow in a thicker coat, but they can also change their coat color. So some Arctic animals will grow in a lighter, more white coat in the wintertime and have a darker, dustier color in the spring and summer. And that just helps them to camouflage. They can also have a diet change. So camels here, they are typically a herbivore. They are snacking on carrots, on vegetation, on grass. They are ruminants, so they have a multi-chambered stomach. So they are constantly nibbling and eating. But it has been studied that in times where they are scarce on food, so they don't have a lot of snacks around them, they will eat anything. If they come across a carcass or anything like that, they will nibble and chew on it just to get that substance that they need to survive. So they can drastically change their diet. Something that can also happen is their internal body temperature can change. So does anyone know the difference? We'll do a little test here for the group. Anyone know the difference between if an animal is warm-blooded or cold-blooded and what that really means?
Ooh, let's see. Oh, we're going to say hi. We're cute. I'm just going to make that full screen. You don't need to see my face. Warm-blooded and cold-blooded. Anyone want to chime in the chat as we see the world's most adorable camel? Let's see. And then the world's maybe least adorable camel right after.
This is Tilly.
Hi, Tilly. You're lovely. Let's see. Anyone want to chime in?
I'll give you a hint. Humans are warm-blooded.
We are indeed. Let's see. We got teachers in the chat, YouTubers, Facebook groups. If you want to chime in. What an adorable face. Again, I want to stress as we do these Zoo programs, we get the most up close and personal animal interactions of all time. It's quite astonishing, really. All right.
Carrie is the star of the show.
Oh, Miss Mustard's class wanted to note most mammals are warm-blooded. Okay.
Yes.
So groups of animals that are warm-blooded. I'll give you a hint that birds are as well.
Yep.
Let's see. Well, maybe tell us more. I think we might have stumped them, Mary Ellen. It's too early. It's too cold.
That's true. You know what? And this is an earlier program than we usually do. Maybe not everyone's awake yet here. So animals can be warm-blooded or cold-blooded. And technically, I don't always love using that term because if you're an animal or a creature that has really warm blood or really hot blood, really cold or really hot blood, you're technically not doing so well on either side of that. Your blood just has to be the exact right temperature for your animal or for whatever you are. And so a better way to actually say it is in ectothermic or an endothermic animal. So humans are endothermic. So are camels here, which basically just means we control our own body temperatures from inside of our body. Our body does it naturally for us. We don't really have much control over it. And we like to stay at a certain range. And it's a pretty tight range for us as well. It has to be within a few degrees. And if you're too cold, you have hypothermia. If you're too hot, you can get a fever or heat stroke. And so we have to stay within that really specific range of around 37 degrees Celsius. And camels are very similar to that. But there's some other animals that are ectothermic. So think of reptiles and amphibians, ones who have to use the outside world to help them change their temperature. So we actually did a whole video, I think, Jesse, on ectothermic animals once about thermal regulation for them. And that's what it's called when they change their temperatures. And this is really important for them because here in Canada, we have snakes, we have frogs, we have turtles, but where do they go? What happens to them at this time of year? Well, there's not a lot of sun. I personally haven't seen the sun in a few days. It's quite gray and cloudy. So there's no external warmth coming for them. So what they do is when it's cold up here, they go down there. Now, maybe not this spot exactly here, but a lot of our ectothermic friends will go underwater or underground to hide out for the winter months. It's just a safer spot for them to be, and it's more temperature constant or consistent for them. So underground, the temperature won't change as much once it starts getting cold. And some of them will hibernate or stay down there by themselves, and others will go together as a group. Like if you've ever seen a garter snake before, they all go into their brumation together in a nice little snake ball, which personally sounds terrifying to me. I respect snakes. I love them for the creatures that they are, but I can confidently say I never need to go near a snake ball in my life. Just not for me. I don't know if anyone else in the program is like that as well. But that's one thing that I I'll leave them to their hibernation or their brumation that they want to do. Now I'm tossing around a couple words here. So brumation is a word specifically used for snakes who go into that sleep over the winter. Then we have a hibernation, which is, I think, a more commonly known one for people out there of animals who are sleeping or kind of going down for naps over the winter. And then there's also one called torpor. And this one is sort of known. I think it's becoming more well known out there. But this is something that's similar to a hibernation. But hibernation is more for smaller animals, and a torpor is more for bigger animals. So think like grizzly bear, they go through something called a torpor, which they do go down and sleep, but they do still get up, move around, eat a little bit. They're just, when they are sleeping, they're in a very slow kind of trance. Their heart rate slows down a little bit and they're taking slower breaths. But when they get up and move around to eat, they're just like normal after that. Versus the hibernation is a little bit more slow down all the time throughout the winter, but they'll still get up and move around if needed. So these are just some of the ways that the animals can avoid the cool. Now, one that I don't know if it's necessarily cheating, but none of the animals that I have here that I can show you do it because they've already all done it, is a migration. So some animals will just simply leave. They don't want to adapt to it. They don't want to say, I'll grow in thicker coats. They just go to a warmer place. And this is really common with butterflies and birds. And you might have noticed at the start of the video, there are actually some geese still in this exhibit. They are an animal who typically does migrate and fly south for the winter. But when you live at a zoo as a bird, you have access to food all the time because we feed our animals here. So they have a really fun time actually just kind of hanging out and eating the food for our animals, and they can go in their shelters and our animals don't really get that bothered by them. So sometimes we see they don't fly as south as they maybe should. All right, now I'm going to play, Jesse's got a video here for us because we have our camels and they are fantastic, but there's lots of other animals here at the zoo who go through a winter change. So I'm going to have Jesse bring up our video here for us in a second, and we're going to look at some of the other animals who go through this winter change, and some you maybe wouldn't expect. So some of them are tundra and domain animals, like our polar bear here. So this is actually Juno, our polar bear, is the first clip. She's our youngest bear that we have here at the zoo. And she's having a great time in the snow. And polar bear is a classic animal that we think, they get a lighter color, they get more fur, they get that really thick blubber around them to keep them nice and toasty. They don't mind the chilly weather at all. But then there's some animals who live here at the zoo who have to adapt to the cold because they physically live here in Toronto with us, but even though they're a warm weather animal. So when we get to them, we'll talk a little bit about how we can help them and what we do to make sure that they adapt to the winter, just like a native cold weather animal. So this is two of our boy polar bears here. There's one in the background as well. They're having fun digging through. This is Shente, our grizzly bear. So this is a recent photo. She's just gone down for her torpor. So she's now starting to be off exhibit because she is napping through most of the day. So she's starting to slow down a little bit. She bulked up for winter and now she's looking to take a little bit of a nap. Now our otters here at the zoo are a great example as well. This animal is in and out of the water all year round. That water is not heated, and they are swimming in it constantly, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me. Now, one thing we do make sure is their indoor area has a heat lamp for them. So they are able to go inside and be cozy if they want to and kind of escape the cold, and they can actually dry off with it as well. Now, this is an animal we probably all recognize here in Canada and in the US. We have our raccoons. So they will also kind of bulk up for the winter time, and they do start to head into more of a hibernation where they will be less active and they do kind of cuddle in like our little micro there. I believe I have an animal coming up here in a second who is not, there we go, not natively a cold weather animal. So we have cheetahs here at the zoo. And while I can't guarantee you'll see them every day of the winter, because ours have been born here and they've just kind of acclimatized to the weather, they are able to stay out and have access to their outdoor exhibit throughout the winter. As long as it's not too dangerous for them, we'll let them go out and they can explore and run around, and their paws might get a little bit colder quicker than some animals, but they will do a really good job of kind of regulating themselves and coming in when they need to. Now, I mentioned we'll let them out if it's safe for them to go out. How do we know what's safe for them? Well, 10 degrees Celsius is about our breaking point for a lot of our animals. That's when it starts to get a little bit too chilly for them. So animals like the giraffes and the rhinos and the hippos, once it's 10 degrees Celsius, they don't care. They don't want to go outside. It could be sunny and they still don't want to do it. It's a little bit too chilly for them. They can't really grow in the extra fur that other animals can. And they really have a hard time adapting to that really, really cold wind that we get here and that kind of wet cold in the beginning of the fall. Another huge issue that we face is for very large animals, and the camels can face this as well, is when you weigh over a couple 100 pounds, when you step on snow, it immediately turns to ice. And so we have to be really careful with our larger mammals that when they go outside in the winter, they're not slipping and sliding and hurting themselves. And so we work with our keepers here at the zoo, our vet team, our nutrition specialists. They all work together to make sure that those animals have access if they want it, but they evaluate their paddocks and their spaces every single day to make sure that they're safe for them to go out in them. And on a really snowy day, they don't really want to go out anyway. They are quite happy staying inside and kind of hiding away. Or they'll do something like this. This is one of our Amur tigers, and they kind of find themselves a little ditch in the snow to avoid the wind. And that's one of their favorite kind of places to hide out in. And then you have a few other large mammals who are built for the snow as well. So reindeer or caribou here, they are set for the winter months. They grow in that big, thick coat. And something really interesting about them is their feet change. So I want everyone to look down at your feet right now and see what kind of shoes you had on. Now, if you're in a classroom, you might have indoor shoes on currently. So I want you to think about what maybe you wore to school today, or what you maybe would wear outside if you were going to go play outside. I currently have boots on, but I don't wear boots all year round. I only wear them in the winter. In the summer, I like to wear sandals or kind of lighter shoes. And reindeer can do the same thing. They actually make their feet harder in the winter months so that they can dig through snow and ice to get their food. And in the summer months, they let them get soft and kind of squishy, for lack of a better word. And they're able to walk on mud and softer ground easier, which is really cool. All right, Jesse, I think I have talked enough here. We have learned so much about these animals. Our camels are being so good for us here right now, staying with us. So let's turn it over to some questions. Now, feel free to ask questions about the camels or any of the other animals we saw in the videos as well.
Amazing. I was going to make a banner that came up that said squishy, but I wanted to figure out the spelling with you, and we'll talk about that later, okay?
Perfect.
Live groups on YouTube, Facebook, please feel free to share questions in the chat. We're going to take as many as we can over the next 20 minutes, but we are going to head to our live classes first. Miss Lou's class, grade 4s. I'm going to head to you to begin. Westview School, I'm coming for you right after that, but come on in, Miss Lou's class. Hi, guys.
Hi. I don't know, but it looks like that one camel, his hump thing is like, it's floppy.
Floppy,
like,
yeah.
Why is it like that?
Tell us more, Mariella. I knew we were going to get that.
Definitely. So you are correct. We actually have two camels in here with really floppy humps. And there's kind of two answers. So camels, we're going for a bite of the camera. Camels can be wild or domesticated camels. So I'll first say that these are all domesticated camels. And the reason our camels have floppy humps is because of genetics. So just like you can share certain qualities maybe with your siblings or your parents, your aunts and uncles, if you're related to them, certain traits get passed on through generations. So our two siblings in here, so we have a floppy hump back there and a floppy hump in front of us here. Their dad also had a floppy hump. So that's why they have one. It's just genetics for them. In the wild, if you saw it, it means that camel is using up their fat resources.
Yeah. Fantastic question to kick us off. And speaking of using up fat resources, I'm going to bring in our Westview School friends. Now, their mic wasn't working earlier. We'll bring them in the hopes that it does. But hello in Stony Plain, Alberta. Miss Smith's class, welcome in. Morgan wanted to know what happens to animals if they run out of food while they're hibernating, Mary Ellen. So if you've eaten up, you run out of food, what's going on?
Oh, yeah. If you run out of your food supply when you've gone into a hibernation, unfortunately, is not good. Hopefully you maybe have squirreled away, pardon my pun here, some extra food, because squirrels will do that. They'll hide food. That's how we get new tree growth, is they often forget where their snacks were. We don't judge them though. It's, part of life. So they can sometimes have a little extra reserve going on for them. But if they use up their fat reserve, they have to wake up and go find food. And it can be really challenging for them to then be able to go back into their slumber and to be able to get enough nutrients to then resurvive their rest of their sleep. So it can be challenging, but it does happen.
Yeah. Speak for yourself. I'm not judging the squirrels, by the way. We're going to head to Miss Mustard's class. Come on in, guys. And then we're going to Miss Brown's right after that. Come on in to Brampton. Hey.
How do camels get water if they're in the desert?
Ooh.
Yeah. How do they get water in the desert? Because not a place where you think, oh yeah, a swimming pool right there. So camels are really good at finding water everywhere. So they will walk a very big distance to get to water. They'll go so far to get any water they can. They can also get it through plants that they're eating. So anything they're chewing on has water inside of it, and their body is really good at sucking it all up for them and then using it to store it in their humps as fat reserve for them. And one really cool thing, there's a lot of cool things about camels. They're my favorite animal, actually. They can drink an absurd amount of water. I don't recommend anyone trying this at home because for humans and a lot of other animals out there, it can actually kill us. So we can get something called water toxicity if we drink too much water really quickly. But camels can drink 100 liters in one go. And that's like if you tried to drink 50 of those 2-liter pop bottles. So the really big pop bottles that you see in stores, if you sat down and drank 50 of those all at once, that's how much a camel can drink all at once, which is absolutely amazing. And they can also drink salt water, which is something we also cannot do. Don't do it. It's not fun. Doesn't taste good. But they don't care kind of what their source is. They will just drink anything they can find.
Two quick follow-ups. One is that Bactrian camels, the ones that we've got right in front of us now, we know can smell snow, so water that they'll eat for water, dozens of kilometers away. Like they'll go in huge herds across the Gobi Desert to try and find fresh snowfalls, which is amazing. I also want to stress for our kids, you will never have enough water to get water toxicity. So if you're at home or you're worried about that, you're way more likely to have too little water than too much if you're in one of our classes today. Just worth noting.
Yes, definitely keep drinking water, kids. It's definitely healthy that we drink it, but don't try and drink 50 pop bottles at once.
No, our camels are very curious again. You've got some new friends. Miss Brown's class, I'm going to head to you. And then again, YouTube, Facebook, if you guys want to share questions, please do. But we'll do another round with our live classes after Miss Brown comes in. Hey, guys.
Do any predators eat any camels?
Oh, good question. Yeah. So here, I'm going to back up for a second here so you can get an idea. I have one of my keeper friends here with us, so you can get an idea of a human next to our camels here. So these guys are pretty large. They are massive animals. So once they're full size like this, there's not a ton of other animals that will come after them. But little Carrie here, our baby, she's what we got to watch out for. So there can be some overlap with like Amur tigers or snow leopards, other large cats and large predators out there that can go and take out a baby camel. But sadly, one of their actual biggest threats is people. And so we always like to work a conservation message into our talks here. Now, domesticated camels are doing really well, but unfortunately, the wild camels aren't. And that's because we overtake their space and use it for domesticated camels. So in the wild, they have a lot of issues with kind of running into other camels, and there's a lot of disease transfer and spread between them. And then there's also a lot of hunting between them for meat and wool and other resources that we can use from them. So we want to pass on the message that wild camels really do need our help. And we are an organization that supports wild camels. And even though we have domesticated ones here, these guys are not kind of overlapping or interfering with any wild camels out there in the world right now.
Yeah, that was some great nuance. And again, you don't need to see my face when we've got the world's cutest camel in front of us. We're going to head back to Miss Lou's class, grade 4s. If you guys want to come back in, you are good to go. Welcome in, guys.
Hey, my question was, does the camels eat anything else instead of carrots?
Ooh.
Yeah, definitely. So they were getting carrots today. It's hard to see, but just over the hill, there's a bunch of hay feeders for them. So they're eating hay all day long. They also get something called a herbivore cube or pellet. So if you have a dog or a cat at home, think of it kind of like the food that you give to them, the kibble that you give them. It's kind of like an all-in-one food for them that's really healthy. It has all their proper vitamins and minerals they need and all the protein and fiber that they need to stay nice and healthy. So they have that they can eat. And they also get things like sweet potato, lettuce, lots of other veggies and fruit that they can snack on throughout the day.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. All right. Our Rescue School friends had a second question. Miss Smith's class, I'll say hi to you guys again. Even though we can't hear you, I'm just going to do a quick hello. And Aria wants to know if lizards hibernate. We're going completely different from camels, back to our reptilian friends. What can you tell us about lizards?
I love it. That's a fantastic question. So lizards are an animal that if they were living in a cold weather place, they would have to go through like a hibernation or an underground. But if they are a tropical type of lizard or chameleon or anything like that, then they don't need to go through the hibernation. So if you have a pet chameleon at home, they're good. They don't need to go through a hibernation. They are set. They are a tropical or warm weather animal. Only ones that are native to cold areas have to go through anything like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about lizards in cold areas in the world. And to my knowledge, lizards are exclusively warm
Yeah.
places. Like turtles live in cold places. We have turtles in Canada, and some of them go through some really amazing things in the winter where ice literally forms around them and they thaw in the winter. Lizards, I can't think of in the world right now, but that's a great question, guys.
Yeah, I can't think of any native lizards that we'd have here to Canada. Oh, that was a good sneeze, Carrie. Thank you. I felt that. I wish all of you could have felt that, but there is now snot all over my face.
Nice. Well, we only got a few more questions. You can go clean off really soon. Miss Mustard's class, come on in.
My question is that how big does a camel become when it's born?
Oh,
Ooh.
how big are they when they're born? Yeah, so here, let me zoom back out here because Carrie's a pretty good size comparison here for us to the other ones. So I would say when she was born, see this bar right here? She was about that tall. Now she's over the bar. And they're also born without humps. So their humps are kind of just big flops of skin on their back when they're first born. They're not filled with anything yet. They have to build them up. She weighed about 100 or so pounds when she was first born.
Yeah, great question. All right, Miss Brown's class, we're going to head to you for one more. Come on in, guys, and take us away.
How can you tell if a camel is a boy or a girl?
Oh, good question. Yeah, how do we know if they're a boy and a girl? So for these camels, it's pretty easy for me because I know who is who in the herd. But when they're first born, it can be pretty easy to tell when you're looking at their back end, as there's different reproductive organs that they each have for being a male or a female camel. And so we're just able to tell that way. And then the males can also get quite a bit bigger than the females. So they're a larger camel when they get full grown. And they can go through something called like a rut, and they will exhibit some different hormones between male and female camels. And that changes how they act, how they interact with each other, and even with their keepers as well. We have to be really careful if they're feeling really hormonal or very excited about something, as they can be a little bit harder to handle or work with at that time.
Yeah, great question, guys. All right, I'm going to take one quick bonus one just because there's been a student standing at a camera for a long time. So Ms. Lou's class, we're going to do one more from you guys, and then we're going to wrap up as time flies and you're having fun. But I do want to encourage all of you, head to the torontozoo.com. Amazing stuff there to learn about all their animals, conservation efforts, and more. And everything that we've ever done with them is on our YouTube channel. So if you want to check out like 30 plus past broadcasts, all sorts of amazing creatures, you can do it there. We've also got another one coming up on December 8th, I do believe. So exciting stuff to come. Miss Lou's group, come on in.
What happens if one of the camels gets sick?
Oh, that's a great question. So honestly, I was going to mention this as a side plot really quickly afterwards, because I was surprised that nobody had asked this question about what is going on with Tilly's tongue. That's usually the first question we get anytime we show her off. But this is a great segue for it. So it wasn't necessarily sick, but it's the same procedure or protocol that we would do. So here at the Toronto Zoo, we have, and across zoos all over the world as well, we have a whole team of keepers who look after our animals on a daily basis. But we also have an amazing team of veterinary staff, and they are the ones who help take care of our animals if they're not feeling so great. Now, Tilly here has a bit of a sad story to start in her life. When she was born, she was actually born in March, which is a little bit unusual. You know, they're typically a little bit more summer. She was born early March. And when she was first born, she had some issues getting up, and her mom wanted her to stand right away, which is very natural for a prey animal or a camel. They need to stand right away. Remember, I was saying that Carrie can be eaten by something because she's so tiny as a baby. So moms want their babies to stand up. And Tilly's mom encouraged her a little bit too well, and actually, unfortunately, broke her jaw in the process of doing the encouragement. And so she had to go in for a surgery with our vet team. Now, luckily, they were able to help her out. Oh, she's like, you're talking about me. I'm going to leave now. They were able to help her out, and they just had to make her jaw slightly shorter at the bottom. And so now her tongue sticks out of her mouth, but it doesn't really bother her. She's totally fine. She eats well. She's actually our oldest camel here. She was born in 2009. So she's one of our older girls out here. And she is still thriving. She's doing great. And the vet team and everyone still monitors her every day just to make sure nothing's changed with what's happening. And so that's basically the same thing. If an animal gets sick here at the zoo, the keepers let the vets know. They come out and monitor and double check what's going on. And then together they come up with a plan on how to help them.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. What a great question. And Mary Ellen, the detailed answer is amazing. Our camels are departing over the hill. They arrived over the hill to begin. They're leaving now just in time. It couldn't have been a better 37 minutes if it tried. Live classes, thank you so much for taking part today. Again, check out the Toronto Zoo, torontozoo.com if you want to learn more about the amazing work that they do there. Mary Ellen, thank you so much for taking us on this journey today. And as you know, we wrap up every broadcast by bringing in all our classes to say a big thank you and farewell. So Miss Lou's class, our Westview School friends, Miss Mustard's crew, and Miss Brown's crew, thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now, guys.